a bottomless fountain of information about what he was talking. He's right. He could go on and on, but I'm going to restrict myself to how fusion is a problem in the context of hydrofracking. And to be honest, I'm kind of sick of talking about and thinking about and eating, breathing, sleeping, ingesting the hydrofracking issue, but I will do it for the cause today again. My history is a little bit similar to Ursula's with regard to how come I'm a member of the Green Party now. Because when I first came to this country and started getting politically active, especially when I moved to Binghamton, to the Binghamton area, Appalachian technically, I was a registered Democrat, and I worked hard with the Tioga Democrats, and was even asked to do various things and maybe even run for office as a Democrat. And then as the years went on, I saw, and I've been up there in Appalachian for about a little over 20 years, I saw a lot of things I didn't like. So I started saying, why should I do anything more with you? Because you're essentially Republican light. And well, this is the county, and the county is very Republican. We're outnumbered 2-1. But there are more, and this is the term they use there. I don't think it's a statewide term. People who are not registered in the party are called blanks. Kind of offensive term, but anyway. And there are more blanks than there are Democrats in Tioga County. And so we're aiming for them. And there are a fair amount of working family people in Tioga County. Broome County right next door. And I live right on the border, and it's almost included in Broome County sort of socially and culturally, because I live in a housing development where most of the people, when they're going grocery shopping, they go into Broome County, and they don't really have any close emotional connection to Tioga County, except that Tioga County used to have lower property taxes than Broome County, which is why most of the people who live where I live in Tioga County. But that's changing. So then when I developed some health issues, then I heard about this group called Citizen Action. And so I started getting involved with Citizen Action, and I started finding out about Working Families Party. And since I was already getting pissed off with the Democrats, I said, oh, well, maybe I'll go to Working Families Party. That seems more to where I am. And in Jamaica, I was, my whole family was more progressive-oriented. Not as progressive as they could have been, because I left because of the Rodney riots in Jamaica in 1968. And I hear 1968, no, Emmanuel Wallerstein was mentioned about 1968, how it was worldwide. So yes, including Jamaica. And I started with Working Families Party, doing a lot of volunteering on healthcare reform, on moving for a single payer, on, hi Howie, welcome, on getting people elected, getting Matt Ryan elected. Come on over, getting Matt Ryan elected for mayor of Binghamton, and he truly is progressive. He's in his second term now, squeaked in because of a lot of the underground work that Working Families Party is known for and does a good job at. But what was the crux for me, especially having been a healthcare volunteer for, 10, 15 years, going to Albany, testifying in Albany, testifying for all these doctors and whatever, managed care, Bill of Rights in New York City, doing a lot of work, going down to D.C. For single payer from healthcare reform. When the Working Families Party and Citizen Action started talking about this thing called public option, I said, what? What happened to single payer? What happened to my work? I felt extremely betrayed, and I still feel betrayed. And it was, the personal became political. It's this feminist expression, which really came home for me. That I can't work with these people anymore because this is personal. You're dealing with my personal health here, with my personal situation that I then expanded into activism. So then simultaneously then I was tapped to be, because of my speaking skills, I was told, to be the candidate for U.S. Senate, or to run on the statewide slate for the Green Party in 2010. And when I started to find out more about the Green Party, I said, hey, whoa, this is where I'm supposed to be as far as my beliefs, my policies, my personal belief system is, especially with marijuana reform. Jamaica is the place where the research was done that marijuana helps with glaucoma. You don't need it. My mother was in the nursing home here in Flushing and taking these pills when I could have just given her a cigarette to smoke, and can't. But anyway, so how it affects the hydrofracking issue is that around the time Howie was running for governor and Cuomo was running for governor, and then Palladino was running for governor, and the fracking issue was starting up on the scene. The emails would come into my box from working families. Oh, you gotta vote on the working families line because, Palladino is gonna kill us, it's gonna be dreadful. So they used the fear tactic, the same fear tactic that the Republicans are so famous for, Working Families Party was using over and over and over in this torrent of emails that you cannot even think about not voting for Cuomo, and you gotta do it on the Working Families Party line. So I saved all those emails as proof. It said, that this is not a party of principle, and especially as what Mark said earlier about Cuomo saying that he didn't want to be on their line. It came more and more into my consciousness that this is not a party of principle, and I'm big on principles. I mean, a lot of my whole personal history has to do with sticking it out there, being persistent on principle, and. With the hydrofracking issue, with this whole fear of Palladino, and simultaneously, a lot of stuff going on simultaneously, with Citizen Action Working Families Party working on the public option, which then came to this watered down Obamacare thing, the hydrofracking was not on the table, was not an issue that Working Families Party, Citizen Action. And I say them simultaneously because at least in the office in Binghamton, they're supposed to be technically, legally, financially separate, but the board member of the former chair of Citizen Action is the former chair of Working Families Party. So there's a lot of overlap between the two, at least in the Binghamton area. And they were very quiet about hydrofracking, and people were saying, where is Citizen Action on hydrofracking? Well, they're busy they have so many issues working on, where is Working Families Party on hydrofracking? When when Citizen Action Working Families Party finally came down to say, well, that they solved the problem of healthcare reform, they're going to go with Obamacare. So that got solved. Then they started coming out with, now therefore, hydrofracking. They started with a moratorium. They didn't really quite know the issue. And I had already been working with Greens, with Mike Bernhardt up in Otsego County, Shenango County, who had been working hard before, doing all the arguments, coming up with all the reasoning for why only a ban would work, because this is such a highly toxic affair that there is no way, no how, and we have been proved right, which made me even prouder to be a member of the Green Party, because stuff that we were saying in 2010, where people were saying, you can't have a ban. One of the activists in upstate New York was, no, you can't have a ban because that's a property taking. And wouldn't listen when I was explaining. I would say in part of my speeches that this country has banned things before, and it has been a taking of either the process or the property of corporations. So, it's not that you can't ban it, it's just that there's so much political power in the fracking corporations. That's why you're saying you can't have a ban. So the position of the Green Party is that the only sane response to fracking is that you have to ban it, and even further, you have to criminalize it, that the act of fracking is a felony. That is the position of the certain members of the not the Green Party itself, but I think the Green Party position is a ban on fracking. And then there is a Woodstock, New York, had passed an ordinance for the criminalization of fracking. So this is not something that is so weird. I'm going to do a mark on you.
No, don't do a mark on me.
Okay, I can be quick. All right.
Two more minutes.
2 more minutes. Okay, I can do this. I'm former Toastmaster for 5 years, so I know how to discipline myself, I think. And so this started coming up. But what was really a coup for Citizen Action Working Families Party was that they found a young man, Isaac Subliman Gorn, who is really good. A graduate of Binghamton University, and I think he might be from New York City or at least Long Island, or who decided he was going to stay in the Binghamton area, which doesn't happen often. And he started being active in progressive issues, in social change issues. He would come to the Move to Amend thing that I put on with David Cobb, and then he started being very active on the fracking issue. He got hired by Citizen Action to be their point person for mobilizing on hydrofracking, mobilizing the community, getting community groups going, with funds from Stan Grabber's Heinz Award. I mean, this can get really squirrely and interesting, since Heinz is one of those NGOs that has sort of an iffy reputation. It's a good reputation, and it's got iffy part to it. But anyway, the money, instead of taking it into her own pocket, she gave part of the funds to Citizen Action to fund for somebody to work on mobilizing hydrofracking. And Isaac has done a wonderful job. But part of the deal now, and having been a member of Working Families Party and Citizen Action, and see how it works from the inside, I can see how this works. As soon as Isaac came on board, or a little before, Eileen Hamlin, who is the former chair of the Working Families Party, she then started being in front of the cameras more and more and saying Working Families Party, Working Families Party, Working Families Party. And when you see him go up to the mic now and he's in front of the TV cameras, you'll hear him say Citizen Action, Working Families Party. The big rally coming up, to which I'm not going because of various reasons, because it started out by focusing on trying to get a moratorium, extending the current moratorium for another 2 years, which there's debate about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Sponsored by, one of the many sponsors is Working Families Party. And maybe Green Party should have become a sponsor on there too. But what?
We are a sponsor. We have leaflets right here.
Okay, but it's not on the big website stuff. I think I saw it more recently. And I thought, Green Party, I wonder how that happened. Okay, maybe Green Party is going to be there pushing for a ban, which is what I hope, instead of this moratorium. So with regard to fusion, now, so the situation in Tioga County and many of the upstate rural counties is that the Republicans dominate, and you have to beg, plead to get even a Democrat to run. And the quality of the Democrats that have run in Tioga County has been really poor. Last example was a person who ran for sheriff of Tioga County. No law enforcement on the Democratic line, no law enforcement experience. His only experience doing anything was as was the person who auctioneer, yes. And I thought, okay, auctioneer is going to be sheriff, okay. And that has been their trend over the years, and this has been the problem with the Democrats. They can't seem to find good quality people to run. So when I ran in 2011 on the Green Party line for Tioga County, what is the word? It's a legislator for my district. I was told point blank by a person in Cortland, an activist in Cortland, you'll never win as a Green Party candidate. She was trying to get me back into Democrats, and some Democrats have been trying to get me back. I've had arguments with them. I said, no, I'm not coming back. Goodbye, you lost me. What I did was to run without saying all my candidate material, just said all the good greeny things, to renewable energy, conserve, and so on, and have good schooling, and no mention of Green Party or any party. It's so bad in Tioga County and in other rural counties that people who are not Republican who want to run make up the name of a party. The other two women who are also running for county legislature, they made, and one of them is a Democrat and the other one might be Green, or she might be still Democrat. Made up, they were called Tioga United, or even like Kevin Millar, who I know is a Democrat, who is the current mayor of the village of Owego. His party is the Oak Tree Party because he's got an oak tree in his front yard. And because the power, the hegemony, the domination, the oppression of the Republicans is so strong, the Democrats are scared and keep running away from them, won't be strong. And so for me to be a Green and run, that's why it would be good to have David Doonan here as a openly Green mayor of in upstate New York. So the problem with fusion, I find, and causing confusion, is that there's still people who don't know about the Green Party, and when you try to educate, well, it's just going to water down the vote of the Democrats. You get a lot of discouragement because it's just going to take away the progressive wing of the Democrats. And as you heard from Mark, the so-called progressive wing of the Democrats has not been doing much help for us. And I totally agree, because I've experienced it upstate New York, that the things that the Working Families Party claim that they have done, well, here, 20 years later, I've been living here 20 years. What happened to all this good stuff you say that you can do or that you have done? It hasn't happened. My water bill has gone up now. The water bill that we're paying, we're all basically flat rate now. And my water bill is going to be $150 or more a year without me using more water, no matter how much water I use. So life is not better for me and for many of the progressives and so on. So for the hydrofracking issue, what has happened is that the Democrats, at least in the southern tier, the Democrats, once Citizen Action got on board with Working Families Party, trailing along with them, have taken over the issue, have grabbed onto the issue, and I'm sure that the last election, when they supported a really, really good candidate who I believe was Green and then got changed over to Democrat, who was the assistant to the mayor of Matt Ryan, the mayor of Binghamton. And Binghamton is in the bullseye of the fracrifice counties, the 6 fracrifice counties, because there's so much leasing there, and also in Tiger County. Working Families Party threw a lot of their volunteer work to get out the vote behind Tariq Abdelazim, who was running for county executive. Really good candidate, articulate, knowledgeable, bright, and he didn't win. And Working Families Party says, well, we don't put our weight behind people who won't win. Well, they have put their weight behind people, and no matter how good they don't win. I don't know what happened there. Somehow they got snookered by the Republicans and outspent by the Republicans. So now we have Broome County has a Republican supervisor, county supervisor. So it's a complicated issue, and I've seen a lot of power struggling going on with this whole fracking. The fracking issue has become, how can I express it? Something that people who don't have principles, it would be very easy to hang on to because we're so desperate not to be fracked. But I will still run under the Green. I'm not going to compromise, but there are other people who say, you got to run as a Democrat because you're not going to win as a Green. But like I said, Village of Afton, Mary Jo Long is an attorney in the Village of Afton in Shenango County, and it's also one of the highly leased counties with Norse Energy having leases all over the place, which is now a bankrupt fracking corporation. So they're trying to flip their leases to somebody else. She is an elected Green member of the town of Afton. So it is possible. So, when Democrats say you're just going to water down the vote and you can't win, that's not true. It's a lie. It's been proven wrong. So, don't listen to them. So,
Thanks,
I'm done.
Cecilia. So, and Howie made it. And Howie, you have 10 minutes. Cecile didn't really listen to me. And you probably we gave them most of your time, and so Mark covered Cuomo-nomics and the minimum wage, and you heard Cecile. So, and then we can discuss how New Yorkers can build a powerful, progressive political alternative to these corporate rule parties.
Ursula's my campaign manager. You can tell she knows how to tell me what to do. And I
We'll see if
apologize.
she's successful.
I know how to tell them what to do. I know.
Yeah, I'm kind of stubborn. This is it. I apologize for being late. I got on the West Side Highway and it was stuck for an hour and a half. There was flooding around 100th Street. And the crews were, I guess, because there's a lot of gravel and whatnot. So I'm glad I made it. I'm glad there's some folks here.
Glad you made it safely.
I'm going to try to talk for 5 minutes about the question of independent politics in 5 minutes about Cuomo's conservative class agenda and how we can oppose it. I mean, here's the political dynamic in New York. We've got a Democratic establishment led by Governor Cuomo, funded by Wall Street, the real estate interests, the one percenters, and they pursue a conservative class agenda of attacking public unions, workers, public services, upstate, forcing scores of municipal governments and school districts toward insolvency, financial control boards, the replacement of our elected governments with bankers who will cut and privatize. This is a very right-wing agenda, yet Cuomo poses as a progressive. He's good on guns, he's good on gays, he's good on abortion. He has a little token environmental program. It's not adequate to the crisis, but he's got a few things he can point to. The school budget is $8.9 billion behind the foundation aid that was approved under Spitzer, yet he'll up it a little bit and say, I'm increasing public education while our school districts are going bankrupt. And we're laying off teachers and closing schools, at least in my city. So the dynamic is we got, and the Republicans love it. I mean, if you watch Roger Stone in the governor election in 2010, he was running Palladino, he was running the Madam, and then when Jimmy McMillan, the clown, got up there and got some attention, he got him some side work promoting gambling online and then linked the website between the Madam and Jimmy the Clown. And Roger Stone is then praising Cuomo for being a fiscal conservative and saying vote for Barron, the blacks should vote for Barron. He never said a word about me. I think it's because we were the only serious alternative, and then he attacked the Libertarian with a very dirty tricks campaign. Roger Stone is a dirty trickster going back to Nixon. That's the kind of crazy politics we got. And the dynamic then is two corporate parties with a consensus on the class issues, and they fight over the social issues, and there's no alternative that gets, serious attention from the progressive movement or the media that has a progressive class and social agenda. Now the Greens are trying to present that. But we got a problem. We got the Working Families Party and Citizen Action and a lot of these union tops who are middle managers. They're not working people. They act like middle management. I know what middle management is. I work in construction, I work in transportation at UPS. I know what a middle manager is, and I know what my union staffers are. I know what Jimmy Hoffa is. They don't represent the workers, but they pose in front, and they cut deals with these Wall Street people. When they bailed out Wall Street, the deal that, Geithner and Jamie Dimon and all them were in, the head of AFL-CIO was also on the New York Federal Reserve Board. He approved that, but he didn't tell us who are workers. So you gotta have clear class understanding of where all the forces stand. When Cuomo ran for governor, he got more money from the Koch brothers, than the guy out in Walker in Wisconsin. Cuomo got over $90,000. In that election, Walker only got $42,000. So when the Working Families Party says vote for the Democrat to send them a message, they're going to coalition with David Koch and these Wall Street people that are still being bailed out, and and then these union tops that basically act like insurance companies. We pay our dues, we get a benefit, but they don't tell us what's going on, and they don't want us to know what's going on, and they sure don't want us to get organized. So then they say, send them a message. Vote for the Democrat on the Working Families line, and they'll get a progressive message. No, the message is, we're going to vote for you anyway, so you can take us for granted. And what has the last 4 years shown? Cuomo has pushed that right-wing class agenda down our throats, and what's the Working Families Party say? Oh, he's on our side. They're pushing the fair elections for New York law. The Silver Bill. Silver's represented the Wall Street financial district in the Assembly since the 70s. That's why we don't have a stock transfer tax, among other things. The Silver Bill throws a little public money after all the cesspool, all this private money, the pay-to-play, legalized bribery, that is how politics get done in New York. So this so-called fair elections bill has unlimited contributions to the housekeeping accounts. They can contribute $1 million. There's no limit. And then they use that for their issue ads and get out the vote. And then they put money in the party committees. And under this bill, they can give $2.5 million to the governor, $50,000 every assembly candidate, $100,000 every state senate candidate. So it's still pay to play. The 1%ers running it. And then they throw in a little public money to give us some camouflage and say they're going to declare victory if the bill passes. It looks like the Republicans will stop it. The Greens advocate clean money. You get a public funding grant, and then the private money's out. So people can't, bribe you with their campaign contributions. So what does this Fair Election Coalition do? They don't tell you the details I just told you. They just said, we're getting public funding. Come on down, mobilize, protest, picket, sign the petition. That's marketing, not movement building. It's not educating people. It's not bringing people in to make the decisions. And that is a middle-class, top-down, middle manager type of politics that is not progressive. It's reactionary because it backs up that reactionary class agenda. So, when these working families people come out here and say, you gonna send them a message? No, the message is, we're the establishment. I wrote an op-ed kind of exposing this, and Mark had a friend who's in the people that made he said, I didn't understand the strategic thinking that went into this. And by the way, this coalition is funded by David Rockefeller Sr., one of the Facebook founders, Chris Hughes, Jonathan Soros, the scion of George Soros, the multi-billionaire, the Committee for Economic Development, which is this corporate pact that goes back to post-World War II, and Organizing for Action, that's the Obama organization, which is like the dark money mirror of Carl Rove's GPS Crossroads. And, they get money, first they got money from Goldman Sachs, Lockheed, they got criticized for that. So now they can just get money from rich people, and then we got to expose that, and then they say, well, we're not going to tell you where they work at. So you really can't tell where the money's coming from. And they're asking for $500 to $1 million contributions. That gets you a meeting on the board, and you get to talk to Obama. This is elite funding. So that's the Obama post-election organization. They're all behind this. It's the 1% pushing fair elections. What's that about? It's not about really changing how the game is played. $10 billion spent in 2012, and, here's another fact, just to give you a picture of what campaign finance is really about. Thomas Ferguson, who studied this, UMass Boston, came out with an article in December, and the thing about Obama is a lot of small contributions. Well, you add them up, it was 1% of his money, $250 or less. It was only 9% of his contributors. 99% of his money and 90% of his contributors were given $250 or less, and many of them, through the various things post-citizen action they can do, were contributing $50,000, $100,000, $500,000. It's a joke. And this Coalition for Fair Elections, they claim to be the progressives. Now the deal was cut. I know how the deal was cut. I know it happened. Sure, maybe it happened before all the money came through. The working families people and the citizen action people, they went and talked to the Democratic tops and said, what are you willing to do? And they said, we're willing to do this phony fair elections thing. So then they say, okay, we got your back. That's how we got Obamacare instead of single payer. There's money came in, what was it called? Healthcare for America Now. Sounds like Healthcare Now, a single payer group. And if you study that thing, the money came in, and a guy that used to run Citizen Action, Richard Kirsch, who basically during the Clinton era decided single payer won't go, the Democrats won't want it, so I'll get what they want, and became the front for that. That's how politics is done. That's the political dynamic. And I probably went more than 5 minutes on fusion, but I want to talk about how we can counter Cuomo's conservative class agenda. And basically, I think we got to say the 1%'s got to start paying their taxes again. There's plenty of money. There is no fiscal crisis manufactured. The concentration of wealth in New York State, income has gone from the top 1% getting 10% in 1980 to 35% in 2007, and in the city, 45%. Meanwhile, in the income tax, top tax bracket was cut from over 15% to 6.85%. You add in the millionaire's tax, it's 8.8%, 8.82%. So it's about half. Meanwhile, your first $8,000, if you're an individual, was raised from 2% to 4%. So they flattened the income tax. And then they stopped collecting the stock transfer tax, which now, because of this high-frequency trading, is over $15 billion a year. And then they cut the revenue sharing, which they promised back in 1971 to do, because what happened was manufacturing was moved to the suburbs because of the interstate highways and so forth, and the cities got eds and meds and hosting government offices in its place. They're nonprofit, they don't pay taxes. So there's a problem. Now, mayors today, like my mayor in Syracuse, Minor, and the one up in Boston, Richards, who was a Republican, they kind of switched to Democrat because you can't run as a Republican in the city. These conservative Democratic mayors say that's the problem. What's their diagnosis? Well, newsflash, the problem developed in the 50s and 60s. They act like they just figured it out. And in the newsflash is in 1971, the mayors of these cities went to Rockefeller and said, we need funding from the state because we no longer have this tax base. Yet we're hosting your eds, your meds, and your government offices. And the state agreed. And it became, in state finance law, 8% of state revenues were supposed to be shared with the cities and some with the towns and villages and counties. And then when the fiscal crisis hit in the 70s here in New York, that became the model of structural adjustment. They moved it to the state, flattened the tax rate, stopped collecting the stock transfer tax, and then started reducing revenue sharing. So now it's down to less than 1%. So like in my city, we get 72 million out of the 774 million in the state. The total state budget's 181 billion. It's far less than 1%. It's not anywhere near 8%. We have about a $35 million structural deficit. So if we doubled it, we'd be good. We have closed fire stations, senior centers, public schools, reduced staffing, and the next step next year is a financial control board, where I think they're going to start selling off these public assets and bringing in contractors who will milk the city for another decade, and then we'll be totally broke and they'll walk away with the money. That's the game plan. That's what we get from Working Families Party saying send the message to the Democrats. So, here's what I think we need to demand. First of all, I mentioned the school aid formula. Get that $8.9 billion back in there, and then it's got to be reworked some more because it's still not fair even after the foundation aid formula. There's gross inequality between how the inner cities are funded and some of these rural, poor upstate districts and, Westchester and Long Island. Restore revenue sharing. To get it up to where it ought to be, I'll tell you where that money will come from. Stock transfer tax, right there's at least $15 billion a year. The income tax, if we had the 1970s income tax structure, 90% of New Yorkers would get a tax cut, and we'd still have $8 billion more in revenue. Bankers' bonus tax. The bankers got bailed out, and there was a proposal right afterwards, tax 50% of their bonuses over $50,000 a year. They're getting over $20 billion every year. They're still being bailed out. That's what the quantitative easing is. Every month they buy about $45 billion of toxic mortgage-backed securities. Cash from the Fed for their trash. It goes on the Fed balance sheet. They hope to sell it someday. We'll see. Enact single-payer health care. In 2009, a state study came out and said if we had gone with single-payer instead of the mandated private insurance, Obamacare that comes from the Heritage Foundation way back, it's a Republican plan, the difference in cost to New Yorkers by 2018 would be $28 billion less for single payer. Universal coverage, no payments at the point of delivery of services. And so that's just collecting dust. So that's 6 reforms. And the 7th, I mentioned city income tax. I'll just tell you in Syracuse, we have a $3.7 billion payroll in the city. We have a city of about 140,000 now. We have 62,000 commuters coming in every day from the suburbs. They got the middle and upper income jobs at the universities, the medical schools, the hospitals, the government offices, and we got big businesses that don't pay any taxes either. That's a whole nother story. If they paid an average 1% income tax, that would raise $37 billion, and that would cover our fiscal deficit. So the least we can do is demand home rule. So let's sum it up. $15 billion on the stock transfer tax, $8 billion on progressive income tax, $10 billion on the banker's bonus tax. That's $33 billion. They're projecting a $3 billion deficit next year. Okay, we pay for that. And we got $30 billion. $10 billion for a fair school funding formula, $10 billion to restore revenue sharing, so the cities and school districts upstate, well, the school districts are already covered by the funding formula, but the cities and counties don't go bankrupt, and bringing these financial control boards. And then we still got another $10 billion in which I think we should invest in this 100% renewable energy from wind, water, and sunlight that Mark Jacobson and Robert Howarth at Cornell and Graphia, best climate scientists in the country, have developed this plan for New York State. And so I think that's a positive program that we can present to the people, independent and opposed to the Democrats and Republicans. And I think those of us that are active in progressive movements in New York State, we've got to take it to people that have this illusion that the Democrats are our friends. Who needs Palladino when you got Cuomo? I mean, he's killing us upstate. And I've heard about the school districts down here in New York City. So I think, that's any serious progressive has got to declare their independence class independence. We cannot expect Wall Street and the real estate industry and the Koch brothers in coalition with some middle-class progressives to get a positive program to deal with our economic crisis or environmental crisis. And don't tell me that because we're opposing the Democrats, we can't also push the progressive social agenda. The fact is, we've led on that. Gay marriage, it was Greens and New Paltz that started it. And the Democratic middle-class staffers who are funded by the Rockefellers and all these foundations said, oh, you're going to create a backlash. And then they said, wait a minute, people like this. And so they jumped out in front. Same thing with the fracking movement. I'm saying ban fracking, and working families saying moratorium. Let's try to get Cuomo to go for the moratorium. We got some Democrats that want the moratorium. And then right after the election, there's funding, and suddenly they got frack action, and they're for the frack ban. All right, we convinced them. They're on our side now, good. But you see, independent politics, we only have to win the office to move the issues. So, anybody still want to defend the Democratic Party and the Working Families Party? I'm ready to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Howie. So